Welcome back, my brave and beautiful humans, to another episode of Soul Hygiene. I am so excited to have my new friend with me, Miss Wendy. She's going to tell us a little bit about herself and what she does, but we had a wonderful conversation. I think it wasn't even a week ago, was it? Or a week and a half ago. And we
Yeah.
got to know each other and what she does to help other moms and just I believe everyone comes into my life for a reason. I believe in divine intervention, divine appointment. I don't believe in coincidences. I believe that they're set there for a specific reason. So I'm very blessed to introduce my new friend, Miss Wendy, to my audience. Welcome. How are you today, Miss Wendy?
I feel great. Thank you very much, TJ. Thank you for having me on your
Oh, of
show.
course.
It's a pleasure.
I'm the one that's blessed. I love your spirit, and I think when we had talked not too long ago, I was like, it's just this aura around you that has just wonderful energy, and what you're doing for moms is just so important, and just to have that specificity in that one area. I haven't met anyone that does that, and I think it's so important. So, if you, I'm gonna turn it over to you and let you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Well, I'm an estrangement recovery coach for moms. Now, what that means is that I help moms who are feeling hurt and rejected by their adult child. There are a lot of them, unfortunately. I help them to stand in their power because that's really important to take back your power in a situation where you feel like you have no power and to be more of who they really are. Because most of us as women don't feel like we can be who we really are. And I say, turn it up, crank it up, and to love their life. And when you got this problem, you don't love your life. You don't feel happy and you feel hopeless and you feel desperate and it's a really bad place to be. A lot of moms deal with this problem for months, even years, some
Mm-hmm.
decades. I like to say that a relationship problem is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And so I come to all of this with some a varied background. I was a journalist and I worked in public relations for many years. And then I gave all that up because I found it, pardon me, but soul sucking. It was like, oh, it was being pulled right out of me. And I thought, no, I can't do this anymore. And so I went to college when I was in my mid 40s and I became a holistic health practitioner. I love doing that, but I wasn't finding that I was getting like the permanent results, like lasting results that moms really and at the time I wasn't working with moms, but the people I was working with, they loved what I did, but it wasn't like a lasting thing. So I studied, I earned many certifications, and I I was also involved with helping myself to deal with my past. And when I started having this problem myself, where my son was not wanting to be around me, was ignoring my texts, my emails, and saying he would show up and then didn't, I became a little bit desperate and wondering what the heck had happened to me too. It's a devastating problem. The person or people, sometimes some women have more than one child who is distanced from them or estranged, we would call it for the most part. Um, and for the most part, you don't know why, because often you had a good relationship at one point and then things devolve. And so there's many reasons why moms and dads too are estranged from their adult children. It is a very big problem. 5 to 10% of all moms eventually are estranged.
Wow.
Most of them get back together, about 80%, but there's no guarantees and it can take a very long time.
Yeah.
So I know from working on myself and changing the direction of my business to work with moms 5 years ago, and all the work that I've done since then, I know how big a problem this is and how devastating it is. And I also know that there's a lot of room in that situation for great personal growth.
I love that.
And yeah, so it's like, you know, I use the training that I got along the way, and then I became a specialist in helping moms because it's just so dear to my heart. I want to help as many moms as I can to come to a place of, um, let's just say, either acceptance. Well, you have to start with acceptance, whichever direction you're going, right? I mean, you
Mm-hmm.
know this, and and then to deal with what is and decide, okay, so your adult child is either ready or not to have a relationship with you, and you have to recognize when it's time to back off and give them their space and avoid looking at it like they're rejecting you as much as they're choosing themselves and their priorities. So moms can choose to love their kid enough to say, go do what you need to do. I don't understand it. I don't agree with it, but you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah. I love how for me, and I can see that in other people's lives, you know, God doesn't want us to go through hard times, but when we do, there's always blessings that come from it. And I feel that people who have gone through really devastating or hard or traumatic or whatever it may be, right? Um, they are more empathetic towards people who are going through the same situation. And if they
Yes.
feel, like you and I, where we're on a journey to help others who have gone through what we have gone through. And I love that progression of blessing, just
Yes.
how things
Yes.
are working out. So when you're dealing with mothers who are estranged from their children, what are some of the challenges that you mostly see in those areas?
Well, it becomes apparent quite early on when I'm talking to a mom that this thing called boundaries, most people don't have them. They don't know what they are. They don't see the
Yeah,
value in them. They think it's just, talk to the hand kind of thing. But boundaries are about you defining what you will and won't do so that you have your own set of rules to manage your time, your
yeah,
money, your energy, and stop the drama.
yeah,
And this is really important for relationships that are respectful and healthy for everybody, both sides, like the adult child and the mom, to have boundaries around you. Please don't call me after 8 because we're working on homework, that kind of thing with the kids. Or yeah, please don't ask me to babysit unless you give me at least 24 hours because I'm working and I need to, manage my time as well. And so the things that I've discovered over these past 5 years, I mean, one of the big problems that moms tend to have, first of all, is no one tells us how to be the mom of an adult child successfully. No one tells us we have to like feel our way, and it can be fraught.
mm-hmm.
Um, Oftentimes people have expectations and they make assumptions about how things will be. Oh, I always thought I would be a grandmother and I always thought I would be in your life and I always thought we'd live
Yeah,
near each other. And it's like expectations and assumptions cause misunderstanding, upset, and disconnection in relationships. Byron Katie said that. And I just absolutely, I thought, okay, that's just perfect because it's
yeah,
so true. If we can just approach our lives more from the standpoint of curiosity, oh, I wonder what's going to happen next, instead of, well, I got it all mapped out and we think we have control and we don't.
yeah,
We need to more than often than not go with the flow and be open to what you can do to live a life that you love. And as I said, stand in your own power to be able to handle anything that comes at you. And young people they're just trying to deal with their life. They're just trying to figure out how the world works. And they've got their own ideas about how they want to live. The same as we did when we were younger.
Yeah.
And we can't prevent them from having life experiences that may hurt them. We can't do that. Everybody is in charge of their own life after the age of whatever it is legally in your area, 18, 19, 25, I don't know.
Yeah.
And we have to be hands off. And it's such a strange transition, is it not? You must have noticed that
No,
too.
I was going to say I completely agree because, you're taught how to raise your kids to a point, some mothers aren't, but like for me, I took some learning from my mom and how I grew up. Um, but that's not always correct either. Every child has their own personality. But
Sure.
as a young mom, you're taught, okay, you should do this, 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 and this till they're 18. But when they turn 18 and have their own lives, their own say, their own children,
Yes.
it's like, whoa, am I a mom? Am I a friend? Am I, like even now I struggle with that because, I have wonderful kids and I have three little grandbabies and they'll do something and I'll want a mommy, mommy, like just, okay, do this, mom, my daughter, she'll say to me, mom, I'm an adult. I don't need you to be my mom right now. I just need you to listen. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, step
Yeah.
back,
Yeah.
and I'm very happy that she has those boundaries, because she has learned those and she kind of helps me navigate the whole motherhood thing. As she's getting older, she's going to be 30 and I'm still like, oh, I want to mommy her and,
Yes. Yes.
and even my youngest, he's in his 20s and I'm like, okay, do I call him and be his mom or do I call him and be his friend? It is a process. I don't think it's a bad process. No one knows what exactly to do,
Well,
but
and I tell my clients, look, we're not going to live forever. They're going to have to get along, hopefully,
yeah,
in the world
yeah,
without us. We
yeah,
want them to. We want
right,
them
we
to be
do.
able to be fully functioning adults. And
Mm-hmm.
so as much as possible, hopefully, while the kids are growing up, they're given opportunities to fail, to figure things out, to pick themselves up, dust
Right,
themselves off, and start all over again,
right,
right?
yeah,
So that they have this sense of self-mastery and this sense of competency that they can take that into their the rest of their lives. And I always say too, you're going to be the mom of an adult child for decades longer than you were the mom of a dependent child.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you got to learn new rules.
Well, and I look at myself, I take care of my two elderly parents, and my mom still wants to mother me, and I'm going to be 50.
Yes.
And so it's kind of and my mom is an amazing woman. But it's still difficult sometimes to be like, Mom, I'm almost 50. I can stay out till 10 o'clock at night. It's okay. You don't need to call me and make sure I got home okay,
Yeah, yeah.
But she will. And I let her,
Yeah.
but it's to me, it's cute in that way. Because she's not hovering and very,
Right.
intrusive. Um, but so I guess as a mom to three adult children, what are adult children do you think? Well, in the ones that you've talked to where you're dealing with, the mother and the child, what do they always say that they need from their mom? Are there certain things that they, let you know?
Yes. Yes. And I've in my online program, I've put in a video and a resource, a PDF that talks about that specifically. And um, they want our support. They want our emotional support. Sometimes they want our money support too. And that's a whole other issue, and that's a boundary issue as well. But that's the answer to your question. They want to know that somebody's on their side, somebody's a resource, somebody who loves them more than anybody in the whole wide world.
Right.
That's what I like to how I like to describe it. That's a mom, right? And so in the ways that we can listen, 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 and be present for them,
Yeah.
then that affirms that they're going in the right direction. Or, yeah, I just wanted to check in about that. Or it helps to have somewhat neutral person who's not actively, living in their area or with them day to day. And so we can be more helpful just listening sometimes than any other thing that we could possibly do. And I mean, I've seen good examples of that in some TV series. I don't watch a lot of TV, but a few years ago there was a TV show. What the heck is it called? Well, the mother in it was lovely. She was just like completely hands off, and kind of like with a little bit of a look, she'd tell them, yeah, I don't really agree with what you're doing, but I'm not going to say anything. And that means that kids can come back and can ask for help once they know you're listening, right?
Hmm.
That's the big thing. um, so yeah, I think that when you are in a situation where your child is choosing not to be with you, there's also some self-reflection that needs to come in play, because a lot of moms say, I don't know what I did wrong. I thought everything was okay. I don't get it. And the idea there is that there's many reasons for estrangement. One of them being young people in their early 20s, they need time on their own to become fully functioning adults, pay their own cell phone, pay for their rent,
Yeah.
and without mom hanging around.
Hmm.
Especially boys, they need some time to be without their moms, to, not all of them, of course, but this is a common thing, to figure out how to be a man, how to be in the world. And so that can sort of impact the late teens, early 20s, and into the time when a child is finished post-secondary education, that kind of thing. So there's other things, such as, sometimes a mom thinks that giving her opinion is going to save her child some pain, but that child doesn't want you to interfere, because it feels like you're saying, I don't think you can manage on your own. I don't think you know enough, or I don't trust you to do it right. And that's very undermining. So if mom tends to jump in with solutions, that's going to leave her child frustrated and angry, not knowing how to say stop. And then we get into a really frustrated young person who's being, let's just say, verbally not nice, just for not calling it abuse. I believe some of it can be abusive, and others of it, other ways where they show they're frustrated, is just that. It's like, I've tried many ways to talk to you and to tell you I don't like that, but you won't listen.
Right.
So this is the thing. Moms need to listen and understand that, yeah, they have full autonomy. They are an adult. They are responsible, not you, not anymore.
I love that you said the listening part, because for me, I always thought, okay, loving my children was loving them wholeheartedly. I'm in this, they're my kids. I need to know everything they're doing, everything. Okay, that's great when they're little, right? And they go through their, you know, 13 to 15 to 16, 17, when they become teenagers, their hormones are changing, and you kind of have to then change your view and your perspective on how they're handling things. And I learned and had to learn, like, it isn't a natural thing, I don't think, for a mom to go from I'm all in, I love you, to like, stop the brakes, halt it, It's very hard. It was very hard for me. But I think my youngest son is the one that taught me the most how to listen, because he had his own life and he was doing his own thing, and I was like, I miss my son. Just kind of like tearful, and it wasn't like a bad relationship, but the second he came back and said, hey ma, I got a question for you, just wondering what you think I should do, I was like, oh,
Oh, I know. Be
He's
still
so,
my heart.
oh my goodness, like, and, and he taught me how to listen because I didn't tell him what to do. I said,
Yeah.
okay, if you do this, this might happen. If you do this, this might happen. Whatever you choose, I love you no matter what. You know, that's just let me
And
know what I can do to help.
this is great because sometimes parents say, this wasn't how he was raised. Like, no, but this is how he's choosing to be. And
Right.
you're going to love him anyway, aren't you?
Well, and
So,
that's,
yeah,
yeah. And you don't have to agree with your children and what
exactly.
they do, what they say, their lifestyle. You don't have to agree with it. That's your right not to agree with it. But by golly, don't you stop loving your children and be like they're not my child anymore because they chose a different path that you didn't think they should choose. That to me is very hypocritical, and it's just
Well, it's shooting yourself in
I
the foot too, because you're never
yeah,
going to get a relationship. What's that old
no,
saying? You'll get more flies with honey than with vinegar. So
right.
stop being so sour about what their choices are.
Well,
And
I mean, if you look at your own life, the one thing that I have learned on my healing journey is with it, I have learned not to judge people whatsoever. I was, I can't say I've never been that person, but I've tried not to be, right?
yeah, yeah,
Um, and the one thing that I look at soul hygiene is it's so important is that before you look at somebody else and start throwing stones, you better start looking at yourself and make sure your
yeah,
soul is scrubbed and is
yeah,
glossy and perfect. Because if it's not, you have no right to throw your venom to somebody else. It doesn't matter what it is. And I feel like sometimes parents miss that mark
yeah,
when their kids are not doing what they thought they should,
yeah,
or not, this isn't how I raised them, like how you said. My kids, like, for most of their lives I was a single mom, so for me, just having amazing kids, working hard, they're kind, they're generous, and they're hard workers. I mean, what more can I ask for?
exactly,
And
exactly.
so if I don't agree with them, I don't agree with them, but they
Mhm.
will always know that I love them no matter what.
Yes,
And I think it just comes down to that. And I love that you have this perspective and this purpose to help moms, because it, like I said, I don't think I've ever met anyone who had this specific
Mhm.
area of expertise. So I'm really thankful
Well,
that
thank
you
you
do.
for saying that because I actually really enjoy the work that I do. Some of my clients I work one on one, and I take them through processes that they go, everybody should be doing this, and I'm like, yes, everybody should be letting go of their old junk that
Yeah,
is clouding how they see the world and their relationships.
yeah,
So this is the thing. If you can have an opportunity to feel safe and to let go of the the negative feelings and such as anger, sadness, fear, hurt, all of these things, and to be able to have a clean slate so that you can stand in your power. I call it calm confidence and safe strength. Isn't
I
that
love that.
beautiful?
I love that. Yeah,
Calm confidence and safe strength. Now, the calm confidence is obviously not yelling. It's standing there and listening and speaking in a normal voice. But I particularly love the safe strength where your child feels safe from judgment and criticism around you and feels your strength that mom has got this.
hmm,
Whatever mom is dealing with, I don't have to take care of mom. She's doing it for herself. And that frees me up to live my life and to come back into hers and have a good interaction, right? A good
yeah.
conversation or a good time at dinner or whatever it is that we end up doing.
I love that. I think that's a good place to end the show for today, but I think we're
Already?
definitely gonna, I know we're gonna definitely have to have you back because something just crossed my mind about, you know, kids who have to take care of their parents,
Yeah.
and the strain on that relationship.
Yes.
I
Yes.
I had an instance, and then we'll end the show, but I had an instance where I was paralyzed with Guillain-Barré syndrome for a year, and my youngest son was my nurse. My daughter took
You had to
care of
step up,
everything else. Yeah,
right?
and they were
You had
they
to.
were young. And just to have that strength, it really, I will never forget that. But to have children who have to do that on a daily basis all the time for years and years,
Wow.
I can't even
Yeah.
imagine the strain that puts on their relationship. But that's going to have to be for another show.
We
Just
will do it.
putting that out there. So, before we end, can you just give people your website, tell them where they can get in touch with you if they'd like to chat or talk?
Yes, yes. Um, Go to fulfillingrelationship.com, and that's the best email to reach me. There's also a masterclass at fulfillingrelationship /masterclass. That would be a really good place to start for anybody wanting to just understand the situation better and to make some choices about your next steps.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Miss Wendy, for joining us
My
today.
pleasure.
I really appreciate it. And it was such a blessing. And we will definitely put all of Miss Wendy's information in the bio, like we always do. I know she has a few links where you can go grab some free information as well. So I'm,
There's a free report there
yeah,
on 21 ways to reconnect with your adult child.
I
So
love that. I love that.
that one's
Thank
really
you
good.
so much. And we'll definitely
My
be
pleasure.
having Miss Wendy back on our show. And we always love, you know, reoccurring guests because we get to know
Great.
them a lot better. So thank
Super.
you so much, everyone, for joining us for another episode of Soul Hygiene. We'll see you later.